homosexuals have all the rights that everybody else does. They weren't, you know, confined to homosexual drinking fountains. They weren't required to sit at the back of the booth. They weren't bought and sold as slaves. And certainly the fact that there are tens of thousands of people who have been involved in that lifestyle, who have found freedom from that lifestyle, ex-homosexuals, that shows that certainly it cannot be equated to the civil rights struggle of the 1960s.
Homosexuals define themselves based on their sexual desires and sexual behavior. In 1989, the public wasn't very accepting of their lifestyle. So the authors of After the Ball suggested that activists take the focus off their sexual behaviors and link to something more acceptable, like the civil rights movement. They argued that people would hate to be perceived as bigots, and that bigotry had caused the suffering or even death of innocent homosexuals. Remember, they actually wrote in the book, "Our effect is achieved without reference to facts, logic, or proof." And after all these years, there's still no proof. But that doesn't seem to have deterred them in the slightest. I'd like you now to meet a young woman who is living proof that there is no homosexual gene. Christine Sneringer is the director of Worthy Creations, a ministry in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, helping homosexuals who want to get out of that destructive lifestyle.
I grew up believing that to be a woman was a liability, really, because my mother was a victim of domestic violence in my home. And so I rejected anything to do with my gender from a very young age, and I was very masculine throughout my childhood, playing sports and anything that the guys normally did, cops and robbers, and, you know, riding my bicycle over a ramp, and all the boy things. Throughout my childhood, even into adulthood, people called me sir, son, and young man because they just couldn't tell that I was a girl because I had adopted such masculine qualities. Because I saw my mother as a victim and not somebody I wanted to be like, in my heart, I rejected her on some level. And so growing up, I never had that real strong bond with her. And I realized, in hindsight, looking back, that part of my homosexuality and what I was looking for in lesbian relationships was that I was looking for my mother's love in the arms of another woman. I was also looking for protection from men because my father abused my mom growing up, and I had been also sexually abused as a young girl, and so I had a very negative view of men. And when you come to that conclusion, women become the only safe option in relationships. I found myself on a softball team that from a church, and so I was surrounded by Christians because it was a Baptist church, and I was playing softball with them. It was like I woke up one day and said, I want to be like them. I want people like that in my life. I just want to know what it is about them. Why are they so different? And so it was really the love of Jesus that they displayed for each other and for me that drew me in to want to know their God. At the time that I made the decision to walk with God and say, okay, whatever you have for me, and even though I don't know how to live without homosexuality, I want to live how you want me to live. So, I mean, I knew that I wanted Jesus even more than my homosexuality. Just in working with so many people now as a director of a ministry that helps people coming out of homosexuality for the last 10 years, just seeing people routinely and hearing their stories and hearing so many common themes, like, for example, breakdown in the relationship with the same-sex parent, gender confusion, peer rejection and labeling, where a little boy grows up and he's not considered masculine by his peers, so his peers reject him and label him and call him names like sissy, fag, and queer, not because he acts out in those ways, but because he's not good on the ball field or the playing field. He's not rough and tumble like other boys. And so then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Just like if you tell a kid long enough that he's stupid, he's never really going to believe that he's intelligent. So there's too much of this kind of data that when you look at the men and women that are coming out of homosexuality and their stories, there's too many similarities, there's too many common themes for me to ever believe that it was genetic. You know, and my own story of overcoming homosexuality is one of just thousands, literally, of people who have come out of homosexuality. But there are people who attempt this journey and who don't make it, who fall away, who either give up, who just say it's too hard. And, you know, because there are some who, for whatever reason, stop on their journey, doesn't negate or invalidate the other people who have made it out of homosexuality. For example, people who said, well, I tried to give up smoking, but it didn't work for me, so it's really not possible to give up smoking. You know, we would find that idea ludicrous. because there are people who have given up smoking. The gay activist community wants tolerance. They want their ideas and their views to be tolerated. But for whatever reason, they can't tolerate anything else except their viewpoint. They can't tolerate a story like mine that says, you know, I used to be gay, but with the help of Jesus, I've been able to overcome that. Why doesn't the tolerance work both ways?
I believe the caricature that's painted of Christians as being mean and hateful, it creates a context where violence is being perpetrated against Christians. I looked, just a very cursory look online, and in the last 3 years, I found 10 instances of church shootings. That doesn't get reported, where Christians are being shot in church. Christians in San Francisco are living in intimidation. For instance, just recently, gay activists crashed a Roman Catholic worship service, desecrated the Eucharist, and mockingly made fun of the faith there, videotaped the whole thing to broadcast it, clearly sacrilege. And the Roman Catholic Church there did nothing, I believe, because of intimidation. What you don't know is immediately after that, in that same week, a man was arrested for trying to set fire to a nunnery where there were 7 nuns asleep in that building. And it's an incredible context of intimidation. And unfortunately, if that can happen in one city and Christians' rights to worship freely are abridged, that can be exported everywhere.
The setting for that action was, of course, the Folsom Street Festival. Talk to us about that.
Well, yes. The Folsom Street Fair, which is nothing more than a sadomasochistic, perverted event that's literally on the streets of San Francisco, took one of our sacred images, the picture of the Last Supper, and desecrated that by dressing up in leather outfits and putting very obscene sex toys on the table. And it was just kind of an in-your-face picture directed at Christians. And the bishop of the Catholic Church spoke up and said, this really isn't appropriate. So for his actions, these radical gay activists, the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, crashed this worship service to send a message that you cannot even criticize homosexuals when they're acting out, even in the most outrageous fashion.
Beautiful Fort Lauderdale in Broward County, Florida, now has the distinction of being #1 in the nation in the spread of HIV/AIDS through male homosexual activity. But when Mayor Jim Naugle attempted to curb the spread of sexually transmitted diseases, he found himself at ground zero in the culture war.
The media is trying to portray me as being a homophobe and guilty of hate speech and an intolerant person. Even though my personal belief is that I don't approve of the lifestyle, I try not to judge people and carry out the duties of being mayor in a way that is based on law and public health.
The mayor angered homosexual activists by announcing that the city would crack down on illegal sexual encounters taking place in public places, such as men's rooms at local parks.
There are websites out there that have 19 pages of places where men can have sex with men and meeting up in public restrooms and other public parks and the like. And it's something that I want to try to eliminate it.
Anonymous sex is one very dangerous public health activity. And especially when you're talking about, the CDC designated category, MSN, men who are having sex with men, their health risk of anonymous sex are even higher than the average person because they are limited to practicing sodomy.
In late 2007, Mayor Naugle called a press conference to issue an apology.
Well, Mayor Naugle did apologize at the press conference, but he did not apologize to the homosexuals. He apologized to the citizens and for not actually trying to stop this in advance.
That press conference prompted new protests.
I'm asking the Broward County Commissioners to pass a resolution to censor Mayor James Naugle.
Dr. John Diggs came from Massachusetts to support Mayor Naugle's public health measures.
But it should be clearly seen that even today, in 2007, that homosexual acts have a key role to say in the spread of all sexually transmitted diseases, especially HIV and AIDS. I think when you look at mayors that are around the country, you should be very proud of Mayor Noggle, because he does something that's, number one, courageous, and number two, puts the health of his citizens at the highest level of priority.
But a heckler tried to disrupt the press conference.
What you people are doing is completely wrong.
After the press conference, the media paid more attention to the heckler than to the medical expert who had flown from New England to attend the press conference. The media interviewed the heckler, who turned out to be an AIDS activist.